I'm Scott Rouse. I'm an interrogator and a body language expert and analyst, and I train law enforcement in the military in interrogation and body language. Now, today we're going to take a look at Lori Vallow Daybell and her new interview that was done by Nate Eaton from East Idaho News. And I'm going to walk you through this almost sentence by sentence so you'll know exactly what's going on from a body language and behavior perspective. Her entrance here is different than the one she did with Keith Morrison.
Hi, Lori.
Here she's more aloof, and seems a little bit more relaxed, and she's not handcuffed. Another interesting thing is this is the same room they did Keith Morrison's interview in. If you look at the clock back there, it's the very same time as it is right now because that clock is broken.
How are you?
Good.
You ready?
Yeah. Are any of my people here? Oh, okay. Hi.
Also, there's lack of respect here, not like when she was dealing with Keith Morrison. And when she comes in and says hello, she says hi to Nate really quickly in this high-pitched hi. Then she looks immediately over to whoever else is in the room and starts talking to them. That shows disrespect.
Good to see you.
Nate, such a pleasure.
That fast walk up and that hand slap and handshake and grip,
Good to see you.
Nate, such a pleasure.
that's passive aggressive. And she's showing she's the one that's dominant in this situation.
Long time coming, huh?
It has been. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
Then he says happy birthday and she lights
Long
up.
time coming, huh?
It has been. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
And right out of the gate, he's appealing to that narcissistic attitude. Smart move.
So I want to start with Chad.
Okay.
You told me years ago.
Today is my birthday.
Today is your birthday.
How old do you think that I am?
52.
Oh, how did you know?
I do my research.
You must know a lot.
Yes.
The girls are like, are you turning 25 in my pod? And I was like, no, I'm turning 25 plus 25 plus 2.
There you go. So
Do
you
the math.
And there it is again. The narcissistic attitude comes busting through. He says, I want to talk to you about Chad. And she starts talking about her birthday, brings that up again because she wants that attention focused on her.
So I want to start with Chad.
Okay.
You told me years ago.
Today is my birthday.
Today is your birthday.
Then she does this humble brag, thinking she looks young, and says that these women in her pod asked her how old she was. Was she 25? She says, no, 25 plus 25 plus 2.
How old do you think that I am?
52.
Oh, how did you know?
I do my research.
You must know a lot.
Yes.
The girls are like, are you turning 25 in my pod? And I was like, no, I'm turning 25 plus 25 plus 2.
There you go. So
Do
you
the
told-
math.
Again, the narcissistic attitude comes busting through. She's adding things from other people talking about how great she is and how pretty she is and how young she looks.
You told me years ago Chad was the best man you've ever met.
Chad is a very kind person, yes.
Is that still true?
Yes.
Notice how quietly she answers this question. I think her confidence is really low on this, but she feels like she needs to say something good about Chad and needs to say that she still thinks he's a very nice person.
How often are you able to talk with him?
So we aren't really speaking.
Normally, when you hear someone say, we aren't really speaking, they're telling you they're in a fuss or a fight.
So we aren't really speaking.
But she goes on to explain,
The way that the mail works here is very difficult.
I see.
So we're only allowed to get postcards. Like you can't send a letter to the jail itself. And so there's difficulties within that.
when she starts describing the situation with the mail and the postcards, look how open she is when she first starts. Then as things go along, she starts to close down. It looks like she's sitting on her hands there for a second. Now she sort of eases into what I want to call her comfort position. And that's with her arms crossed and her legs crossed. And she starts giving information from that position and moves everything from there as she goes forward. Another thing to pay attention to here is how far her chin is up and how far it goes out and how far back her head is. This gives us the impression she feels she's above everyone else and she's looking down her nose at this guy.
So does it bother you, though, that in Chad's trial, he blamed it on you and Alex?
So now that I know the judicial system and now that I have been my own attorney and how things work, and I've said this before in an interview, it's so different what goes on behind the scenes in a high profile case. Okay? There's strategies going on, there's defenses going on, there's all these things going on that you wish, like, why can't we just go in and tell our side of the story? The attorneys are like, you can't do that. We have to come up with the defense, and we have to do this, and we have to do this, and like, why don't we just go? Why isn't it, you thought, like, if you've never been in the judicial system, which I hadn't before, you thought they get to tell their side of the story, what they think happened, you get to go in and tell your side of the story of what happened, and then the jury gets to decide. And that's not what happens. That's not what happens at all. And it's so sad and disappointing that that's.
This is classic chaff and redirect. She doesn't want to answer this question. Look at her body language. She closes down. She gets a little bit tighter in here. Now, when he asks her the question, she goes directly to how the court system works and how the judicial system works. Doesn't answer the question. It's yes or no. She doesn't do this. She doesn't answer it that way.
So does it bother you, though, that in Chad's trial, he blamed it on you and Alex?
So now that I know the judicial system and now that I have been my own attorney and how things work, and I've said this before in an interview,
She's using a lot of illustrators, and she's also using regulators. Regulators are the way we control a conversation. That's when you say, wait, hang on just a second. You move from there to over there. You come here, slow down. Those kind of things are regulators. They regulate the conversation. They help control the conversation. And psychologically, you see this, and you see her from going very closed down, to wide open, giving these big hand gestures and illustrators. So that makes you think she's being open and honest with you, when actually she's not even answering the question.
And
they're doing it how they want to do it.
And that's why you wanted to be your own attorney.
There's several reasons. The number one reason was because they wanted me to sit here for 5 years while they got to know the case. And I wanted a speedy trial.
Notice how her gestures and illustrators have become a lot smaller, and there aren't as many of them either. Again, she starts blaming other people for the reason she wanted to be her own attorney.
The number one reason was because they wanted me to sit here for 5 years while they got to know the case.
So far, she's not taking responsibility for anything. Even being her own attorney, she makes it sound like somebody else is making her do that.
Can we go back to Hawaii? When I first met you and Chad.
And we didn't meet. You just put a microphone in my face.
Okay, when I put
Now we've met.
We have met, you're right. Why didn't you just tell me where the kids were?
Because I was not ready to talk about it at all at that point. I was just not ready. It was very traumatic, and I was not ready for any of that.
Now, he found her in Hawaii and went up and started asking her questions. He asked her where the children were, and she wouldn't tell him. But she's acting as if she would have told him if she was ready.
It was very traumatic, and I was not ready for any of that.
But she couldn't say where they were because she would have been arrested right then for murder because she was still under the impression she was going to get away with it.
You mentioned a tragedy, and you said that this has all been a family tragedy.
Yes.
And it has been a huge tragedy.
Absolutely.
All of this.
Absolutely.
4 juries have said you and Chad and Alex caused the tragedy.
Yeah. That's the judicial system.
Notice here how there are 0 illustrators and gestures, not one.
Absolutely.
4 juries have said you and Chad and Alex caused the tragedy.
Yeah. That's the judicial system.
Bank of America recently announced a data breach, and here's what's really disturbing about that. They didn't tell anybody about it for months. And on average, it takes a company about 277 days to report a breach. And your personal data could have been exposed months ago, and you're just now hearing about it. This isn't even the first breach that Bank of America has had this year. And last year, Citigroup and JP Morgan Chase both announced breaches. And your bank could be breached right now, and it could be months before you find out about it. Do you want to give a criminal a 9-month head start? No. That's why it's really important to be talking about today's sponsor, Aura. Aura alerts me if they find my phone number, email, or social security number on the dark web. And they're going to let me know fast if anybody tries to use that information to access my credit or bank accounts. And they give me up to $5 million in identity theft insurance if the worst case scenario happens. They also provide a bunch of other features that keep you safe online, all inside one app. And you can go to aura.com/Scott Rouse for a 14-day free trial. And that'll be enough time for Aura to find out if your personal data has been exposed. You'll learn about it long before any of these companies are forced to tell you about it. I highly recommend you do this right now, because the only thing most of these companies are going to do to help you is offer you free credit monitoring. Free credit monitoring after the fact. And that's like installing security cameras after your house has been robbed. Look, I get it. There are so many data breaches, your social security number might as well be written on a bathroom wall. But if you haven't been a victim to fraud yet, then why are you still rolling the dice? If it's because protecting yourself feels overwhelming, let Aura do all the hard work for you. I'm not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to these data breaches. And if you don't want to either, then you can go to aura.com/Scott Rouse for a 14-day free trial. I'll put that link in the description below. And we're seeing that every time a question comes up about the children, about the murders, about anything to do with her being guilty, she just locks down.
And you said that this has all been a family tragedy.
Yes,
And it has been a huge tragedy.
absolutely.
All of this.
Absolutely.
4 juries have said you and Chad and Alex caused the tragedy.
Yeah, that's the judicial system.
But how do you argue with that if all of this evidence came out that showed, that you, Chad?
The only evidence that ever came out is the evidence state wanted to put forth.
Well,
They
you could-
they
you could
manipulate the evidence to make it look however they want.
But you
And
could
guess who
present
helps
evidence.
them? The media helps them because from day one, when someone called you, okay, day one, whether it was Detective Hope or Detective Hermosillo, I'm not sure, called you and said, hey, Nate Eaton, this is going to be the biggest story of your life. And they got that information from Heather Daybell. And Heather Daybell and Detective Hoper are connected, right, because their kids got married. And they called and she said, oh, I have a story for you. These people killed their spouses so they could get married, which was totally a rumor,
I don't think that's
totally
true, Lori.
untrue. And then you ran with it and you got famous from it and everybody knows what happened from there, right? So that's the way it goes.
Again, she's locked down. And we see these gestures in these illustrators, but they're really small. It's mostly with the right hand. We do see one come out like this for a second, but she's getting angry as this goes along. Listen to how fast her voice is sped up.
Everybody knows what happened from there, right? So
Her nostrils are flaring. That chin's going out even further. She's coming forward and pointing and moving forward as she's pointing. These are all aggressive moves.
So if Tylee killed JJ and then felt bad and committed suicide, how did she die first?
she didn't.
Lori said Tylee, who was her daughter, killed JJ, who was her son, and then she felt bad and committed suicide. But as it ends up, Tylee died before JJ died. So that's what the question's about.
She didn't?
That's part of their whole fake narrative. That's part of everything that they were doing. So I don't really want to get into all of those details with you because you obviously are very set in your mind. I'm not here to change people's minds.
I want you to change my mind. I'd love to hear any evidence or facts you have that might make me think, you know what, they have it wrong, but I haven't heard anything otherwise.
That's because you've been pushing this narrative for 5.5 years. Do you not telling me that your mind is not set on what it is already?
Minds can change.
They could change
Right.
if they're open to change.
Right.
Okay.
Her voice volume is louder. Her tone is tighter.
That's because you've been pushing this narrative for 5.5 years. Do you not telling me that your mind is not set?
Again, this is another question about the murders. So listen to her voice tone. It lowers. Listen to her volume. It lowers. Listen to how fast she speaks. That goes slower.
5 years. Do you not telling me that your mind is not set on what it is already?
Minds can change.
They could change
Right.
if they're open to change.
Right.
Okay. So
She's locked down again. We only see 2 gestures, and those little illustrators are her hands coming out 2 times. And there's not much there at all.
So Lori, if you could go back 6 years
yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
June of 2019,
Okay.
would you change anything that's happened over the past 6 years?
Oh, that's a good question, Nate. I don't think I could because
could.
we were foreordained to do this mission, right? The Lord is using Chad and I right now, and this is what He's told us, as instruments in His hands.
When somebody asks you a question like this, it's usually for fun. And you say, what would you do if you could change anything in the past few years? What would you do differently? And you get all giggly and you tell what you would do differently. She does that at the beginning because to her, that question triggers fun. Now, when she realizes what's happening, watch how quickly her facial expressions change. She goes from smiling and happy to this real serious tone.
Okay.
Would you change anything that's happened over the past 6 years?
Oh, that's a good question, Nate. I don't think I could because
could.
we were foreordained to do this mission.
Then she moves into this thing about religion. And when that happens, listen to how quiet she gets. Look how still she gets. She does rock back and forth a little bit at the top. We don't see any gestures. We don't see any illustrators. Nothing like that at all. Because it goes back to anytime she's asked about the murders, she shuts down.
The Lord is using Chad and I right now, and this is what He's told us, as instruments in His hands.
Did you ever think you'd have the title of convicted serial killer?
No, do I?
Well, for people,
I mean, I guess you could technically say that, but everyone in the world knows that I didn't hurt anyone. I've never hurt anyone in my whole entire life.
Another question about the murders. And that's a really good one because it totally catches her off guard.
did you ever think you'd have the title of convicted serial killer?
No, do I?
She looks away and she blows air out her nose.
No, do I?
And she gets real quiet. Same thing she's done before. She shuts down, not much movement anywhere. Her voice tone gets lower. Her voice volume gets lower. She starts speaking slower.
Yes, you could technically say that, but everyone in the world knows that I didn't hurt anyone. I've never hurt anyone in my whole entire life.
When she says everybody knows I didn't hurt anybody, listen how she says hurt. There's a K at the beginning and there's a little is sound. She was going to say everybody knows I didn't kill anybody.
Everyone in the world knows that I didn't hurt anyone. Everyone in the world knows that I didn't hurt anyone, hurt anyone, hurt anyone, hurt anyone, hurt.
She's severity softening at this point, and that one almost slipped.
Well, years ago, everybody I've talked to, your friends, family, say you were a great mom, so much fun. Loved to dance, loved music, loved to travel. You were the light of the party. And here we are in a jail. How did you get from there to here?
God put me here for His purpose. And so you know who He needs? He needs somebody who's the life of the party, somebody who teaches the girls how to work out, somebody who teaches the girls how to have fun and dance and do all those things in the worst jail in the country. He needed somebody to come in to the worst jail in the country and strengthen these women.
This is a great questioning technique because what he's done is he's feeding that ego again. He's going to get an answer and he wants the answer to that question, but he's feeding her ego so that narcissistic part of her puffs up a little bit. And she's like, yeah, that's me. And you can see that on her face. Look at her facial expressions. Everything says, yeah, that's me. And during that, she looks right at the camera while she's smiling, going, yeah, that's me. That's a great question. He did this really well. Then she talks about how God put her in there because she is all those things. She's so wonderful and so good and can help so many people with her personality that God wanted her to be in there to help other people.
God put me here for His purpose. And so you know who He needs? He needs somebody who's the life of the party, somebody who teaches the girls how to work out, somebody who teaches the girls how to have fun and dance and do all those things in the worst jail in the country. He needed somebody to come in to the worst jail in the country and strengthen these women.
So there's reason number 2 that God decided she needed to be in prison.
Why didn't you tell them all this when you were arrested? Explain this to them. You know, God's told me to do this. Give your defense.
Really? What happens to people when they say God told them to do something? They lock them up.
Well,
I'm locked up.
So once again, she doesn't take responsibility for doing something she should have done if she were innocent. She should have said, hey, here's what happened. Here are the details. Here's what's going on. But she didn't do that because she didn't want to talk about God because you know what happens to people who talk about God? They put you in prison, and that's where I am.
What happens to people when they say God told them to do something? They lock them up.
well,
I'm locked up.
Then she laughs and looks at the other people in the room to help back up her story. She wants them to laugh along with her. She knows them, so I guess she figures they probably would, and they may have.
What happens to people when they say God told them to do something? They lock them up.
well,
I'm locked up.
But that's one of those questions where you want to see the body language get serious and say, well, here's what I did. Here's what I didn't do. And things should get focused. Your illustrator should be right here, right in this little area right here as you're telling what happened, if you're going to illustrate at all. And as you go through this, you get serious. And she's not taking this one seriously at all, not even a little bit.
do you feel bad about anything that's happened? Do you have any remorse, any apology, anything?
Bad about anything that's a really broad
It
question.
is a broad question. About the past 6 years. Any? Do you feel bad about
Do I have
this?
bad feelings about anyone?
Not
Or-
bad feelings. Do you personally feel bad or feel some remorse for the victims in these cases?
None of the people are victims.
That's a great question. Do you have any remorse for what happened or what you did? Listen to how long it takes her to even start answering that question. She's confused with that question.
Do you feel bad about anything that's happened? Do you have any remorse, any apology, anything?
Bad about anything that's
This is some heavy psychological barriering and spacing going on there. And she doesn't see anyone in this situation as a victim. She says none of the people are victims.
None of the people are victims.
She can't accept the fact that she's done something that makes someone a victim, that she would look bad by doing something that would make something happen horrible for somebody else and being called out on it.
None of the people are victims.
And just like every other time a question about the murders have come up, what does she do? She shuts down. She locks down. There's not much going on there at all. Again, her voice tone goes lower. Her voice volume goes lower. She slows down when she's talking. Everything goes back to her locked, safe position.
So
Are you the victim? Is that what you're
no,
saying?
I'm not saying I'm a victim at all. I'm not saying that at all. I'm an instrument in God's hands. The victims that you call victims are not victims. Tammy died of natural causes.
Watch how she adapts with her hand, with her thumb on her thumb like that, rubbing that as the question goes forward and she starts talking. This is really interesting because this is the least she's moved the entire time.
I'm an instrument in God's hands. The victims that you call victims are not victims. Tammy died of natural causes.
Her chin isn't thrust forward. It's not jutting out like it has been. She's not being aggressive like she has been up to this point. Her head is actually lowered some, but it still goes along with what we've seen so far every time a question about the murders comes up. She locks down, gets quiet, not much movement.
I lost my children. I lost them.
But because of what you did.
What did I do to them?
You arranged with Alex to conspire to kill them.
No, I did not.
And
Absolutely
Chad.
not. Absolutely
Did you
not.
know that they
This is the quietest she's been so far when she's talking about losing her children. Then he calls her out on it, and she says, "What did I do to them?" Because we know she's not the one that actually hurt those children, but she conspired to make all that happen.
What did I do to them?
You arranged with Alex to conspire to kill them.
No, I did not.
And
Absolutely
Chad.
not. Absolutely
Did you
not.
know that they
When somebody does this, when they're telling you they didn't do something, they want you to believe them, they're pushing on their chest, they're pushing over their heart like that. Looks like that's what she's doing, doesn't it? But watch what she's doing. She's doing this and saying, absolutely not, absolutely not. I don't know what it is about the word absolutely, but it sure seems to pop up a lot when somebody did something they weren't supposed to do and they want you to believe they didn't. There are no studies on that. There's nothing that shows that word shows up when people aren't being honest, but it sure seems to.
Absolutely
Did you
not.
know that they were in Chad's
Absolutely
backyard? Or
not.
did I
No, I did not know that. I did not know where they were. Alex told me that he was put them in a safe place. That's what he
So
told me.
did you find out at the court at the first trial? Is that the first time you'd seen those autopsy photos?
Yeah, I hadn't ever seen them. I never looked at them before that.
Okay.
Because that's not how I picture my children. I know where they are in heaven. I know what they're doing. They have come to visit me. So I don't see them as bones.
That's what's called a non-contracted denial. I did not know that. I did not know where they were. You don't say it like that. You say, I didn't know. I didn't know where they were. You make it shorter. You contract it because you want that information out. You want to make sure you get that information across, that they understand it.
No, I did not know that. I did not know where they were.
Before, we thought we'd heard as quiet as she'd been up to that point. Well, she's topped that now because when she talks about, he told me he put him in a safe place. Listen to how quiet she gets here.
Told me that he was put them in a safe place. That's what he
So
told me.
did you find out?
This entire answer has been really, really quiet. I do believe her, though, when she says she didn't see the autopsy pictures before then.
Is that the first time you'd seen those autopsy photos?
Yeah, I hadn't ever seen them. I never looked at them before that.
Because she's almost flippant about that when it comes out. She's like, yeah, I've never seen that before. She's not thinking about the answer. She's not preparing and then structuring something to answer with. It's just coming out of her.
Yeah, I hadn't ever seen them. I never looked at them before that.
It's fluid. So I believe that.
My children are in their eternity. They're doing well. They're happy. They're moving on. They don't want me to be sad. They came to me because they don't want me to be sad. They said, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong.
Now she's talking about her dead children coming to talk to her and tell her she's done nothing wrong.
They came to me because they don't want me to be sad. They said, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong.
If she really believes this is true, that's her brain blocking off all that horrible stuff that happened to her children that she's responsible for. So she's blacking that out and putting in this situation where the children have come to her and said, you didn't do anything wrong. We're fine.
My children are in their eternity. They're doing well. They're happy. They're moving on. They don't want me to be sad. They came to me because they don't want me to be sad. They said, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong.
And watch how heavily she comes in with those affirmation nods when she says anything wrong. She makes sure that gets out and that's loud, and she wants him to hear that and know. And that shows us at the same time that's the end of that thought for her, that what she wants to talk about with that. That's the end of it.
Okay, I have 15 cards, but I'm getting the wrap. So thank you, Lori, for chatting with me, and maybe we can chat again
Maybe
another
we can
time.
do it again sometime.
Okay. Thank you. Happy birthday. See ya.
M&M's. Can I have an M&M? No? Are you guys gonna meet me? Yeah.
When she says, maybe we can do it again sometime, she wants to do this again sometime. She wants that attention. She wants to be interviewed. She wants to be talked to. Although she doesn't like what she's talking about, she still wants that attention.
Thank you, Lori, for chatting with me, and maybe we can chat again
Maybe
another
we can
time.
do it again sometime.
Okay.
That's why she locks eyes with him and keeps smiling and keeps staring at him.
Chat again
Maybe
another
we can
time.
do it again sometime.
Okay.
Her exit here is a little bit different than it was with the Dateline interview. She's not handcuffed. Nobody's leading her out of the room. She's free to walk around and talk to anybody she wants to. She's gathering her stuff up. And take a look at the clock. It's the same time as when she came in. And it's also the same time as when she came in and when she left for the Dateline interview. So obviously it's broken. So there you have it. Lori Vallow Daybell in her latest interview. All right, if you got any questions about body language, just send them to me. Bodylanguagequestions@gmail.com, and I'll get right on it.